Greetings. This video is designed to teach you how to take notes for honors and AP statistics. I list the assignments as reading and notes quizzes because I do expect you to read from your textbook as well as take notes. So this is the beginning of Chapter 1. So before we begin, let's have our book open to page 1. Let's also have some paper, preferably notebook paper, to take notes on. You have to handwrite these, you're not allowed to type them. And let's also have the gold sheet of paper that looks like this page that I gave you in class called Honor Statistics Note-Taking Hints. So these are general items that you could include in your notes. I'll be using the electronic textbook, and it looks like this. It mirrors very nicely your hardback textbook. So the beginning of Chapter 1 looks like this. Chapter 1, Exploring Data, and then it has this case study. I think it would be very important to start your notes by putting your name and the date in the top right-hand corner. That's where I prefer you to put it. And then the next thing that the gold paper tells us is to take a look at this case study, and if we actually do read through it, then it should help jog our memory if I happen to ask a question about it in our notes. So I did write down the title of this chapter called Exploring Data, and here's the case study called Do Pets or Friends Help Reduce Stress? So let's take a look at that on the book, in the book. And you can I'll pause the video right now and you can go ahead and read this case study. Okay, having read the case study, if I ask you what that's about, you should be able to remember that it has something to do with your heart rate and having a friend or a dog present. The next thing on this helpful hints sheet is, it would be really good for you to read what you're supposed to learn in the section. If you see any activity, give it a title, vocabulary words, headings, comic strips, those types of things. So let's take a look at how I did that. All right. The heading of the introduction is Data Analysis, Making Sense Out of Data. And when you start to read this section, you will notice that there is a word right here in bold print. So even though that's not an official vocabulary word because it doesn't appear in a green box, if you read these paragraphs, you would say that data analysis is organizing, displaying, summarizing, and asking questions about the data. So that's what I wrote on my notes for class. I put it in green. Oh, first I wrote down the learning objectives. You don't have to write these down. I won't ever ask you about them. I wrote them down just because I like to know, hey, what is it that I'm doing in this activity? I want to identify individuals and variables in a set of data, and I want to class those variables as either categorical or quantitative. The first vocabulary we word came to was data analysis. As you can tell, I like to use different colors, and for vocab words, I like to underline them. And then I put data analysis as organizing, displaying, summarizing, and asking questions about data. Then we have two very important green boxes on the next page. Up above, definitions of individuals and variables, and down below, categorical and quantitative variable. So as you can see, I put their vocabulary definitions down for individuals and variables. Then in between these two green boxes, there were some italicized words, and if we go back to that, it's telling you, when you have a new set of data, you should ask a bunch of questions about where did the data come from, because that actually can really make a difference as to what the data is telling us. Sometimes the data could be completely useless. So I wrote those words down next. Then I have my categorical and quantitative vocabulary words. Again, you should be reading through the page, as I have done previous. Now we come to a big red caution button with an exclamation point. I really like to put those on the notes quizzes, and it's in italics. Not every variable that takes a number value is quantitative. And then it tells you about zip codes, for instance. You wouldn't want to do math with zip codes. You can also see over to the right that we have an exam tip. And if you're taking AP, that would be a good thing to put down. Also on the list is an example. This is example 1, and it's called Census at School. You should read through what that's about, but maybe just give it a title, as you can see that I did in my notes. So here we have the exam tip, we have the caution number 1, and the example. Census at School is a database of school students from around the world. All right, finishing up with our notes quiz, or our notes, we see that there is a couple more vocabulary words, distribution, and it tells us about the different chapters and what you'll be learning in the book, how to explore data analysis. So I have that on the next page. Here's the distribution vocabulary word, and I put the bullet points down of how to explore data. Make sure when you're taking your notes you give enough space in between the sentences so that you can actually read and find your work and it's separated out. The check your understanding, you can skip this because we will probably do that in class together. So if you want to read through it quickly, you can, but you can skip the check your understanding, so you don't need to write those down or to even do them. We have drawing conclusions that go beyond the data at hand. That was up on the next page, I believe. After the check your understanding, we'll get to that for you right here. Inference, that is what AP Statistics is about. And then we have an activity called the hiring discrimination. You should read through that, but again, you might just want to put down a title about that to remind you what it's about. And then throughout the reading notes, it told you what we're going to be covering on the different chapters of the book. This inference is the topic for AP Statistics. So we won't be doing much inference, maybe a day or two at the end. Now, what you should do is go back, and the next page of your hardback textbook, or of the electronic textbook, is the summary. And you can see individuals, variable, categorical, quantitative, and distribution. It lists the vocabulary words, and if you were to go back through, you should be able to find all of those in your notes. If you can't, then you're in danger of losing points on the notes quiz. In fact, if you don't have much time, you might just want to write down and take notes on the summary. That won't get you full credit on your notes quizzes, but it should help you pass the notes quizzes. If you have any other questions, please ask me about these in class or after class. I would be happy to sit down with you and individually discuss how to take notes, especially if you're finding that you're having trouble and not scoring well on the notes quizzes. Thank you.